In this video, we are going to begin working on the detail for the wall section of structure number 3. Now, I'm in the section through that structure, and I've already created a call out. So just as a reminder, you go to View, and from View, click on Call Out and make a rectangle. Now, you can see that there's some overlap here in the text in my bubble, and I'll need to make some adjustments when we start to get into the sheet layout. But for the moment, I just need to make sure that there's enough space on either side of the wall for me to get in the notes. All right, so once I'm here, I'm going to go to the wall section at structure 3. So this is, I made a copy, or when I made the call out, I renamed it to this title. Okay, so you will see once you make the call out that a duplicate name appears directly below this one. You're going to right click on it and rename it to wall section at structure 3. And when you go to that structure or that detail, you're going to see something that looks like this. Now in this call out, we want to make sure we have information about the eave and about the thickened slab at the bottom. We'll also have some notes about the typical wall condition here. But anyway, we'll get to a little bit more detail with that. Now I'm going to zoom in a little closer. So we have in this structure the light gauge metal framing. In your textbook, if you go back to chapter 12, you'll see some of the details for this type of structure. And then we are also going to be adding detail about the roof. The type of roof that we're going to be using is a standing seam metal roof. We'll make ours out of aluminum. As you may recall from the reading, there are different metals that can be used for this process. So the way this works, these metal pans are laid down on top of the roof structure. And at the seams, which these are the standing seams right here, the pans are bent so that they form a tight joint between them. So here you can see one of the pans before it's been installed on top of the roof. And this is, again, how these get kind of curled around so that they produce a tight joint that keeps water out. All right, now back in our detail, I'm going to click on this roof assembly, and I'm going to go to Edit Type and Edit under the structure. And so what we have here are this metal roof, and it says here aluminum. That will be the material type that we use, sitting on top of a layer of gypsum sheathing. So you can see, if you click on the preview here, you'll be able to see this whole assembly. 6 inches of rigid insulation. And then the core area has a layer of plywood sheathing, and we have these 12-inch metal joists. On the interior side, we have a 1/2-inch layer of gypsum wallboard. Now, I'm going to make a change here to the aluminum. Now, it's not that the thickness of the material is actually 1/2 inch. I just want to leave a little bit of extra space so I can construct in there a membrane layer using a dashed line type. And I want to make sure there's enough room graphically to show that. So again, it's not that the aluminum is 1/2 inch thick. It's going to be much thinner. Click on OK and apply and OK. All right. Now, one thing that we'll be working on is the insulation. You can see here the way that the wall assembly and the roof assembly work. These insulation layers are not joined. So if we were to actually detail it like this, we have a huge gap where heat and cold would be passing through the assembly. So we're going to need to bring this up. We'll also be adding some detail at the fascia and adding some of the components that make up the framing. So you'll find that as you develop details that you need to kind of do some research. Sometimes you're going to get information from manufacturers. Sometimes you'll find resource books that have detail content that you can integrate into your detail. So we'll be doing something that looks like this, although this detail, as you can see with the X's here, is a wood framed structure. But we have some similar conditions. We have this very thick layer of rigid insulation. We have a standing seam that shows in elevation. And we have a membrane here. You can see the insulation comes up to meet the underside of the plywood sheathing. We'll have that as well. But anyway, this should just give you an idea of what the detail is going to look like. Also, there is a drip that's here that we'll include in our detail. All right, so under annotate, under detail line, we need to find a line type to serve as the membrane layer. So I'm going to double check with my other details so I have the same graphic. So I'm going to go to annotate here, detail line, and once here, I will begin to construct a line. I want to see how it looks. It looks like I included a continuous line when I did the detail for the wood frame structure. So I've drawn this line and I'm going to offset it by 1/4 of an inch. Click on that line and move it over and then erase the original one. I think they're a little too far apart. So let's see what else we can find in here. We'll leave it as a hidden line right there, just so there's something to reference. All right, so that's going underneath the aluminum. And I'm also going to go ahead and construct the standing seam. So this I will offset by 1.5 inches. So again, this is the part that gets kind of folded over with the metal pans. So click here and we want to offset to the top. I'm going to erase this and I'm going to change this line type to a thin line. All right, and we can extend this a little bit past our line. And I'll also draw a thin line to close off that seam. And if you click on a line and use this fillet tool, you can close that up. Okay, now I'll also construct this drip edge, but I'm going to change the profile of this detail right here so that it angles back. So to do that, click on the roof and then under the properties, go down to where it says plumb cut. And let's see what this second one looks like. That is not what we want. We'll try this one here. And it's producing the same detail. So I need to make a different kind of change here. So I'm going to Control Z to bring it back to how it was. So I'm pretty sure there are ways of editing the profile, but I'm going to kind of use since this is really the only place that we're going to show this in any degree of detail, I'm going to use some annotation tools to get the detail to look the way that I want it to. So first what I'm going to do is go to region and I'm going to create a masking region. And I'm basically going to start here at the end point and bring this back. So it basically covers that portion of the roof assembly and bring this back here. I want these to be invisible lines. So when I click on them, you can see it says invisible lines up here, and then I'm going to hit the check mark. Okay, so now I have a slight variation on that condition. Okay, so that masking region, you know, if you kind of hover around, you'll be able to find it. I'm going to edit the boundary and actually, no, I'll leave that. Never mind. We're going to construct some components on top of that. So let's see here. Let's go to detail line and I created that line type that's called thin medium. I'm going to start from that corner where my masking region started, click here, and then extend this. What does this say? 8.5. Let's bring it down another 3/4 of an inch or so. And let's offset that. So what we're doing here is creating a fascia. Go back to annotate and detail line and close up that form. Let's get it to snap there. So it's just a board that's applied to the side there. Detail line here. And actually, maybe I need to bring it down so it is aligning with the sheathing, like so. All right, now what I can do is draw in a drip edge. So I'm going to click on this corner again, make a line here about 4 or 5 inches. These drip edges all have slightly different dimensions, and I'm going to offset this just 1/4 of an inch. So click here, and we want to offset towards the top, and then I can erase some of these extra lines. I'm going to extend this out. Something like that, about an inch or so. And from here, I'll continue to make a few extra lines. So remember, the drip edge is basically just to kind of keep water from backing up into the roof. I'll make this about 4 inches and angle it off like so. Okay, so the water will just kind of fall into the gutter that we're going to construct next. Now let's move this line over a little bit, or let's offset a line. So we'll have one for the gutter and one for this. So I've got it set at 1/4 of an inch. Let's bring this over, and then let's go ahead and fillet these lines here. This is going to be part of the gutter assembly, and I'm going to bring it down a little bit. And which is the dimension there, say 4 1/4. Let's bring it down to 5 inches. And we'll make a kind of custom shape for this gutter. Okay, so I'm going to detail line, and I'm going to make an arc. Okay, so let's try clicking on the end point here, the end point here, and then bringing it up to this location. Okay, so these should all be that thin medium line style. I'm going to create another detail line, but for this one, I'm going to use the thin lines because this is being viewed in elevation. This is an edge beyond, not something that I'm cutting through. Okay, so that should take care of that portion of the roof. Now we can begin to bring in some of the framing members.